Hello and welcome again, everyone, to the Word of the Day podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Silva, and I'm here to pleasantly explain a couple more useful words. But before I do so, a quick word of explanation for the abnormally lengthy wait between episodes. Seeing as how this is a humble podcast and lacks an official studio, we do all the recording in my car. That's right, the entire Word of the Day production staff piles into this here RAV4, guests included if need be, and we record there. Thus, the torrential downpours affecting the West Coast have also affected this show, in that it rains right on the RAV4 studios and diminishes the recording quality beneath the ultra-high audio standards that we demand. But thankfully, right at this moment, we are in the midst of a mild lull in the weather, so we are taking the opportunity to put together an episode for your entertainment as always. At this point, it could start raining again, but we're tired of waiting. So if it does begin again, or you hear thunder or howling wind in the background, we're probably just going to leave it in the episode. Well, that's enough preamble. Let's begin with the first word today, which is monosyllabic, meaning consisting of just one syllable. The noun form intuitively is monosyllable, and that means a one-syllable word. Note the obvious irony here in that the word monosyllable has lots of syllables. What sorts of words are monosyllabic, and what do they sound like, you ask? Well, words like these words, as well as those words too. This is what they sound like. Words made out of just one sound are found far and near, and if you keep an ear out, you'll hear them. Conversely, multisyllabic vocabulary, featuring multiple syllables, minimum, permeates English. Indeed, howsoever greatly people prefer shunning multisyllabic language, almost invariably success remains elusive. As far as etymology goes, this one is a little complex, so try to bear with me. Monosyllabic and, of course, monosyllable come from the Greek word monosyllabos, which means monosyllable. With the etymology taken care of, let's say a quick word about usage. Most of the time when people say monosyllable, they do so to indicate how simply they're saying something, with the understanding that shorter words are usually easier to understand and a little more mainstream, and longer words are probably going to be, on balance, a little more obscure, a little harder to understand. This is generally true, though of course some monosyllabic words are plenty hard to understand or are obscure, like zarf, which is an ornamental coffee cup holder, and on the other hand, some multisyllabic words are extremely easy to understand, such as super excellent, which means, quote, extremely excellent, which is, in fact, a real word, no hyphens or anything. Let's hit the examples. Example number 1. Gerald, being rather inebriated, did his best to stick to monosyllables in order to stay coherent. Sidebar here, inebriated is a fancier word for drunk. Example number 2. Even though it was a very advanced daycare, Mr. Parquet worked hard to keep his description of the differences between mauve and violet as monosyllabic as possible. Alrighty, the second word today is discriminating, which, importantly, is a different word than discriminatory. Discriminatory means exactly what you think, and discriminating means choosy or selective, but in a good way. It just means that when presented with an array of options, you think them over and pick the best one. The online definition of discriminating is broader and better. Quote, of a person having or showing refined taste or good judgment, unquote. So the refined taste is the choosy part. And indeed, you occasionally hear someone described as a person of very discriminating tastes, which means that they have very particular preferences in food or fashion or maybe home decor, and those preferences are probably of the more sophisticated sort. Now, I wasn't aware of the good judgment angle of the definition, but that does make sense. If you're putting this much thought into a choice, you're probably making better selections. Adding to the confusion, the verb discriminate can be synonymous with differentiate, which means notice or point out the differences between two or more things, presumably with an eye towards identifying the best among them. Again, the meaning is perfectly benign. Now, some people might question whether encouraging the use of terms that could be taken the wrong way is a good idea, but I affirm quite strongly that it is. You should certainly call people discriminating at your own risk, but it's actually a compliment and they should take it as such. Here are some examples. Example number 1. Karen was always very discriminating about her avocado purchases. She liked to gently press a dozen or so in the avocado bin in the store before selecting one with the right level of ripeness. Example number 2. Hamilton was fine, but not amazing, said Chalmers with a discriminating air. I prefer the sophisticated charm of the musical Cats. Example number 3. Glenn took great pride in his ability to discriminate between the sponsored and genuine content in his online news sources. Well, that is it for us today. Thank you all for tuning in. I know we have a lot of discriminating listeners out there, people who can distinguish between good podcasts and bad, and we appreciate you choosing this podcast. And you know, we do work hard around here to be discriminating in selecting only the best words, the most fun and interesting words, and sometimes monosyllabic ones, sometimes multisyllabic, just for you. And don't forget, you can always get in touch with us at wotdpodcast@gmail.com, or also follow us on Twitter at WOTD_podcast. Until next time, I'm Jamie Silva, and thanks for listening.